So where we left off with this morning's talk was Vukelich the God began not the sacred law, the eternal law. We call them seven commandments. And for me to really understand what these words meant, I don't know if you noticed earlier when we interpreted those small little word parts, I got a completely different meaning out of something like my great-grandparent, or my ancestor, my great-grandchild. Someone I'm inextricably interconnected with. Someone I'm inextricably linked to. Rather than, oh, just a relative term. There's a great deal of philosophy embedded in that as well. And so when I approach the language through that lens, I got to really understand this. I am going to seek out ceremony, and culture, and the spirituality of my ancestors. In one of the most ancient ceremonies I found, and as I was looking around, it seemed to make sense because we discussed ceremony particularly for men here. One of the most ancient ones I found was called Vukelich. Did you ask about that yesterday? That's the one, Vukelich one. This is called the Vision Quest.
Called the what?
A Vision Quest. Have everyone in here heard of Vision Quest before? I guess in this group, yes. I found an account that was written in 1904. It was written completely in Ojibwe. It was by Gagi Benesi, the late Chief John Benesi at Thunder Bay, Fort William First Nation. I don't know, are you guys familiar with Thunder Bay? It's the top part of North Superior, Lake Superior. It's on the northern part of that. And he must have been a very old man when he recorded this in 1904. He had recorded it with, just as a personal note, his achievement was so amazing. William Jones was the first indigenous person to receive a PhD in anthropology. He was a Meskwaki speaker, a Sackatoon speaker. Maybe you guys have heard of Jim Thorpe. He was from that same tribe. They're a sister language to Ojibwe. They speak a similar language. It would be like someone who speaks Portuguese listening to someone speak Spanish.
Yeah.
They're not the same, but they're very similar. You're like, I recognize that word, or even Italian. Okay, a lot of cognitive. So he learned Ojibwe pretty quickly. And as he was traveling around, he was writing down stories in the language. And it must have been remarkable because he ended up at some places where even in like 1903, people were still wearing leather. They were still living in lodges. And they were blown away that this mixed blood individual could walk into camp, speak with them, and then write down exactly what they said and repeat it back to them. And they're like, what? Because these were people who could recite, maybe listen to someone tell a story for literally hours and then recite it word for word. That was what they were invested in. That was part of the oral tradition. You'll see it show up in all sorts of places like the first sutras. Those were all recited orally. The Quran was recited orally. It wasn't written down, it was recited and then it was written down. So this old man begins telling him his story. Now, this must have been in the 1830s or 1840s. And he's in a lodge, and it says his dad wakes him up, and he uses that old word for my dad, Noose. Noose wakes me up. And this boy looks at him, and he sees that Noose has two things, one in each hand. In one hand, there's micho, breakfast, food. It's in a birch bark dish. There's manomi, wild rice, rios, venison, minon berries, badam, and corn. And in the other one is a kakanje, charcoal. Now this boy knows he's being presented a choice. It's an incredibly important spiritual teaching. No one can have this ceremony for you, and no one can make you do it. You choose to go on this ceremony, it has to be your decision. And you have to realize Grandma and Grandpa can't do this for you. Your cousins, your aunts or uncles can't do this for you. This has to be you. So he knows what's at stake. And if he chooses the food, he'll be fed breakfast. He won't be reprimanded, he won't be chewed out. It might not be his time. But he knows what he's going to do and he picks the akakaje. The old man takes up the charred piece of wood and marks his face with it several times. And for the next 4 days and 3 nights, he's going to go with the food So we have to go without water in isolation on an empty watch on Vandenberg Road. Now, he had been getting ready for this all of his life. One of my elders had shared this story with me. This is kind of nice because I can be a little more personal. And like this father said, when his first time was fasting, and he recalled the night before, he was treated like a king. Like he was fed first. He was this like 6-year-old kid. He was fed first. He was sitting by the nice place by the fire. Everyone's like, "Hey, yeah, you're doing great," because the next day he's going to go on his fast. And he recalled getting in the canoe with the old man, one of the elders in the community, and they went out to this island. And he had a little bundle with him. And then the old man said, "There's this particular plant in the middle of the island. And I want you to go get it for me." And he explained it to him, and so this boy goes out there and he finds it, he comes back, and the old man is gone. He realizes, okay, I've started my vision quest. And this is easier up north where there are a number of islands where they're small. This boy has climbed Mountain Cape. And he has been getting ready for all of his life. And I only tell that my elder's story about that because since he had been 2 or 3, he had been getting ready for this experience. They had been preparing him. So there's relativity here. Like I would take an 8-year-old kid from South Minneapolis and say, "I'll see you in 4 days. I hope you made it and have fun." He had been ready for this. He had watched the elders. They'd been telling him about this, same as this boy. Later in his account, he'll get up to when I was a very small child, it was 1 day of fasting, and it was a day and a night. And then he said, by the end of my fasting, I couldn't quite get past 8 days, but I could get up to 8 days of fasting without food and water. And that was a skill that they had developed because they needed it. And at the end of that first day of fasting, I don't know if you guys have ever had to do this for either medical or spiritual reasons. I think everything past day 1 without water gets very uncomfortable. Now, if you can imagine, the sun is setting, it's Lake Superior, it's spring, it's getting cold. You're on a mountain by yourself. He's going to be 8 years old. I wonder when he's at. I wonder if this guy. Where would I get some of that water that I see in Lake Superior? How would I get food? How would I make clothing? Food. How would I even make a shelter, fire? How would I do that? He's realizing something very important right now. What happens to a human being without food, water, clothing, or shelter? You will die. You will die without those basic core human needs being met. At this point, he realizes that I have a relationship with all of these beings. Because who is giving him clothing and food? The 4 living the birds, the fish are feeding him. Where does he get his lodge from? It's coming from the Netibu, from the trees. They're giving him a lodge, they're giving him fire, they're giving him the very oxygen he needs. Where does he seek out healing, nourishment? It comes from the mushkiki, the Ojibwe word for medicine. I think it's so beautiful. It's mushkiki. It has in it mushk, which is strength, and a ki, which is the earth. It's strength of the earth. When we need to be healed, when we need to be nourished, we seek out the strength of the earth. At that point, he realizes, wait, I have a relationship with each one of these beings. And so when he uses a word that you learned earlier today, he didn't want to talk all of my relatives. He's addressing all of them. Each one of those beings, through their relationship, can become relatives. So when you say a word like that, you're acknowledging all of the stones, you're acknowledging the trees, you're acknowledging the water that's giving life to all of it. And now as he is learning this, he's learning the first grandfather teaching will speak about. Humility. In that word for humility, there's the bus, low. The aim is to think in diso, is of myself. I think lowly of myself. That might sound like low self-esteem in English. What he's really doing is putting Anishinaabe, putting the human being where the human being belongs. I am not more important than the relatives who give me life. In fact, I cannot live without you. You may do just fine without me. I cannot live without you. I will die. I like how in some places our word for Anishinaabe, which I think it's pre-contact meaning, is human being. Nowadays you might hear it as an indigenous person, but I seriously believe that it's human being. And in some communities, Anishinaabe has an Anisha, or nothing, an Ave, like. For them, Anishinaabe is the one who is nothing without his or her relatives. In the Lake of the Woods area, Anishinaabe is the one who is humble. And in that humility and in learning that, this boy has learned that I can't survive without my relatives. I will certainly die. I think it's fitting at the beginning of Native American Month, and soon in the United States we'll celebrate Thanksgiving. Often, as an indigenous person, I've been asked, well, why did our ancestors help those people out? Why did they help out the people who would ultimately settle and colonize Mekanako, Turtle Island? And that was actually never a question to them. It was, this is how I should treat a relative if I see them without these basic core human needs. This is how a human being treats another human being. It wasn't politically motivated. It was, I too have faced hunger, cold, thirst, loneliness, and if I can, I will help you. I find that very moving. Humility. Think of, again, when we talked about that relationship that we have with all of our relatives, it's not exclusively just to the animals, to the earth, to the other beings that live here. It's also with my fellow humans. That moment that I don't have to be more important than all of my relatives, that I acknowledge that I am all of my relatives. Oh my gosh, what have we lifted from our shoulders? The moment we're not striving, the moment we're not competing, the moment we're just relating. In that relationship, we can find respect for one another. What be the next way Father teaching us? Manachi. Respect. If you look that up in the dictionary, it can mean both respect, it can also mean to go easy, to use sparingly. So, if we were to look at this grandfather teaching the sacred law of respect, this boy asks himself, well, I get my food and my clothing and my shelter. Earlier, I told you all that my great-grandfather, this from Turtle Mountain, took place in the plains in northern North Dakota. We were a buffalo. The buffalo fed us, they clothed us, they sheltered us, they gave us a myriad of tools to lives. Would it then be a good idea to go out and kill all of the buffalo, or would that be catastrophically stupid? You would be destroying yourself. You destroy your food, your clothing, your shelter. This is probably something you've heard about indigenous people. They took what they needed and they left the rest on. Okay, then I'm going to feed myself, clothe myself, shelter myself, and then I will be the rest of And what is so moving about that is that it's Menachi do it. It's respect, it's reciprocal. They're doing it to one another. So we are only taking it up to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, shelter ourselves, but it's the animals, it's the buffalo who are looking at us as human beings and saying, if we do not take care of our younger sibling, they will perish. Again, we might do just fine without them, but they can't live without us. So from an indigenous perspective, often we think of hunters as going out and getting the animals. From the Ojibwe perspective, it's the animals who are walking in front of the gun, in front of the bow and arrow. They're swimming into the net. They're going into the trap. They're doing it because they're looking at us and saying, you are, you know. It sounds terrible in English. I have compassion for you, but you really are pathetic compared to us. Like my wife is why is just like, you can't use pathetic or people hate it, but it is. They look at us and like, you're not going to make it. You're not going to survive unless we help you. You're a human being. You're not very fast. You have no fur. You need moccasins. You're just not going to make it. We are going to take care of you. For me, at this point, respect is acknowledging the sacredness, the sanctity in each other. I acknowledge my relatives as sacred beings. I acknowledge that their lives are sacred. And it's there's a particular beauty in that there are trees, that there are animals who are looking at us and saying, you too are sacred. You're like that's valid. And we love you. And I think that's an appropriate part time to speak about our next round. Well, Zaki doing? It has in it this morpheme, Zak, which is to emerge. It's to So, I have a friend whose name is Sagachi. And Sagachiwe really means to emerge. In Aju, it's over a mountain. So if you can imagine, there is a mountain and someone is climbing, and as they reach the summit, they come into view. So that's one way of describing that. If we can imagine this boy at the end of his first night of fasting. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you've been out all night in the wilderness before the dawn comes. The dawn, the approaching of the dawn, becomes very dark. And then the atmosphere begins changing. It becomes lighter. You can hear the birds singing. If you're chronic insomniac like myself, you're saying to yourself, dang it, I've done it again. I stayed up all night. Tomorrow is going to be tough. And all of a sudden, Sagachiwe has a different meaning. Sagachiwe is the rising of the sun from the rising. When that sun rises, who's the sun shining on? What we're seeing here is an example of what does the Creator, what does the kind Spirit, the benevolent mysteries, and the conditional love of care. It has to be something for everyone. Now, if you've been cold and lonely in the dark by yourself and you see everything illuminated, that can really dramatically shift your world. Okay, I get it. We can see it in our month of May as well. The month of May in Ojibwe, it's called Saki Pagakis. It's the budding. It has in it Zak, again, to emerge. In the bug, it's the leaf. So in May, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Ontario, and Manitoba, the days begin getting begin to keep off thunderbirds flying overhead, thunderstorms. And as people are planting corn, which they've already done, all of a sudden, deep within that kernel of corn, all of a sudden, life emerges. That's the Zak of God. Now, when that corn comes to fruition, which we did last month, the corn will be a thief or a teacher, a saint or a sinner. We're seeing the medicines, the strength of the earth showing us, by example, what does unconditional love look like. It has to be something for everyone and everything. And so we have that word saki. And now, for me, when I looked at that word, saki, I think it's eternal. When we look at our word for truth, Wei, I wonder if the language is literally censoring itself. If the language is saying, I can't define something eternal to you. I think love is something eternal. I don't believe it has a beginning or an end. And I don't think it's something that can be thought of. If it is eternal and we're thinking about it, we're using the wrong tool for the job. That's why I've never read a poem, a book, listened to a song, looked at a sculpture or a painting that's ever captured the feeling I have for mom and dad, my brothers, my cousins, my wife, my children. It's not coming from love that we're speaking about. It has to emerge from somewhere within us. It's beyond thought. It can't be described by thought. And everyone in here has probably had an experience at one point or another where you say, I am going to love this person, no matter what. And you're just saying it. It's never genuine. It's never authentic because it doesn't come from there. But when it does come from that genuine place, when it emerges from deep within us, when it emerges from the dark where places we can't even think of, and it comes out, it's for the benefit of all of us. And that way, it's where we love one another. Sometimes when I'm asked for translations in Ojibwe, it can be difficult because I'm not a first language speaker, so I don't have those first language speaker judgments where I've worked with some people who are just perfect and they're spot on every time. But this was one where it was love one another. And it's like, oh, how do you say that to Ojibwe? And I'm like, thank you. That is a softball. That is one of our grandfather teachings, Saki Itin. Saki Itin. Love one another. Saki Itin. Love one another. And we don't just have that one word for love. See, there's another one I would love to share with you. With that Saki, if you have someone who you care deeply about, you can always say, Kisaki, I love you. Often I'll be asked, oh, is that like romantic love? Is that platonic love? Is that filial love? And it's that, no, it's something deeper, internally within me. So, to anyone, you could say Kisaki. But a pleasant reminder that if I am all of my relatives, and all of my relatives, I deserve the same love for myself that I give to all of my relatives. I've been told as a sacred love, you should love your relatives, you should love one another. But how often, and I highly doubt I'm alone here, how often have we been overly critical of ourselves? How often have we condemned ourselves? Have we said things to ourselves that we wouldn't even say to people we dislike? Like, I wouldn't say those things, but I'll say them to myself. How often? And far too often. Saki is always to love oneself in a way that's not self-centered, that's not egocentric. It is, I'm all of my relatives, I love myself because I love all of my relatives. And I know in the society we live in, we can be overly self-critical. And we can condemn ourselves.
Stop doing that.
Also easy.
Boys or men don't have that. So that's what I would.
We don't just have one word for love in the language. There's also Juwenum. Juwenum has several different translations in English, but it's only one word in Ojibwe. Juwenum can mean to have compassion for. It can mean to love unconditionally. It can mean to love. It means all of those things. And I think maybe the best way to get across that translation would be through stories.
And
That's how our ancestors would have tried to explain this. And one of the stories that I think captures this perfectly, it's our name for the month of February. It's the Namebenigesis. It's the suckerfish.
speak about your own.
I don't know, you guys know who a suckerfish is? I know we have people from other parts of the world. Nameben, this is a suckerfish. They're bottom dweller. And this winter, this was a pre-contact winter, and it had been incredibly harsh. It wasn't like our last winter, it was more like the winter before that. It started with the polar vortex. There'd been a blizzard, another blizzard, more snow, another polar vortex. And so by this time, by February, people's food stores were exhausted. And no matter how much wild rice you've stored, no matter how much mandame corn you have set aside, all of a sudden, there was always someone in need, and their food stores had become exhausted. The people were becoming bucketed. Nowadays, if you take First or Ojibwe and you say, oh, translate, are you hungry? You're bucketed enough. In that day and age, it meant something different. Buck was to be thin, and ade is your stomach. They were literally, you could see the starvation of them. They were getting thin from hunger.
Why did you do
Maybe a kind of funny anecdote. In Canada, they still use that to be skinny instead of hungry. They say, oh, you're skinny, bucketed. You're thin from hunger. And I remember I was in second year Ojibwe, and we were doing kind of a class trip to this very remote area. Again, no electricity, no running water. You had to canoe to get there. And I was with this rather heavy-set fellow. And there were fluent first language speakers and elders there, and he had told one of them, oh, Nebukadnezar. And she had heard, oh, I'm skinny. And she was like, no. You are way too heavy-set to be skinny. I'm hungry. They would use their koshkele, my stomach's empty. But they were becoming hungry. They were getting hot. And when it gets that cold, like during those polar vortexes, animals will hunker down for a month. They won't move. They will get through the cold sun. They will burrow in. And if you are a hunting and gathering people, that can make life very difficult.
There were many others here.
And so as they were starving, they did what they were instructed to do. They asked for help. And it said a man has a vision where Nameben, the suckerfish, approaches him in his dream, tells him that if you Anishinaabe, if you human beings were to set your nets underneath the ice, we will swim it. We will save your lives. And this man wakes up, he relates his vision to the people there, and that's what they do. They set up this network of holes, one where they were able to fish their nets underneath the ice. And they set it up because when it gets that cold, bottom dwellers will go towards the ice. All of the other fish will go towards the bottom of the rivers and lakes. Bottom dwellers will go towards the ice. And it was Nameben, the suckerfish, who looked at human beings and had compassion and pity for us. It said, if we don't help you, you're going to die. It was a bottom dweller who looked at human beings. They had shown us unconditional love. Here, with our bodies, we will feed you, we will nourish you, and they blessed us with love. That's why they have since called that month Namebenigesis. It's the suckerfish. What happened again in Iskigamizige? It's the staff holding. This is March. And in some places they. And what they had done was it had been the end of another hard, cold winter. And so they did what they did every year, they sent hunters out. And these guys came back with nothing. They could not find anything. And there was one hunter who stayed out, he stayed behind. And all of a sudden he heard this disembodied voice speaking to him. Now he knew he was by himself. So he was looking around, trying to see who this was, but he could see no one. And then he realizes, oh, it's inanautic. It's the man tree who is speaking to me. It's our word for maple. If you look at their leaves, they have 5 fingers on them. And it's the man tree who is speaking to him and says, if you were to make an incision in my bark, what will come out of me? And at this time, it was pure sap. It was pure syrup. Later it will become sap when the trickster sees us just chowing down on sap. Says, you guys have gotten lazy. Yeah, we're going to change this so it becomes sap, but at this time it's pure syrup. And the tree tells him that if you were to drink this sap, this syrup that comes out of my body, it will give you the necessary calories, it will give you the vitamins, it will give you the minerals you need to live through this month. And at that point, they've called that month ever since the sap one syrup evaporating. Nowadays, we have to get 30 gallons of syrup, of sap, to boil down to 1 gallon of syrup. But at this time, it was just pure syrup. There was a tree. It was a tree that looked at human beings and said, we do not have them. We're going to die. And again, they showed us compassion, showed us pity. They knew we were going to make it. They were going to do just fine, and we weren't. They blessed us love by giving us their unconditional love, by giving us the very lifeblood that they needed to survive. And so that will become basically fantasy babies. And that word, Shawena, this is what I use every day. It's what I use when I'm done setting down tobacco, when I'm done praying, meditating. And this is one that you'll probably hear at the end of ceremonies, and it's one I'd love for you guys to bring with you as you leave a program like this. It's Shawena Missional. You'll hear it 4 times. Shawena Missional, Shawena Missional, Shawena Missional, Shawena Missional. Really what that means is please bless, please have compassion for them, and please love all of us. We get an insight into what traditional indigenous spirituality is about. I would rarely pray for myself. If I am all of my relatives and all of my relatives are me, if I truly believe in something, I am going to ask for you the same thing I would ask for myself. And in this case, what we're asking for all of our relatives is unconditional love. We're asking to be blessed. We're asking for whoever that mysterious one is, to have compassion for all of us, have pity for all of us. And if you'd like, would you guys like to know how practicing that one with me? It's yeah. So we'll try it. Shawenam. Ishanam. Ishanam. This is one I learned from my Ojibwe professor. We'll do it backwards. No. No. Ishanam. Ishanam. Wainishanam. Wainishanam. Shawenam Ishanam. 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 Yes. And it's a prayer. Please bless. Please have compassion. Please love all of us. Shawenam Ishanam. You can say that. I use Uranium myself all the time. I have the privilege of dropping him off at school, and you don't have a word for goodbye in Ojibwe. It's "Give love and I'll see you again." The deeper meaning with that, when you're speaking about the Mats one earlier, was that there's the eternal moving through the impermanent. You not have a word for goodbye. It's like, I'll see you later. I'll see you later. It'll be in this life or in the next. Take a walk. I'll see you again sometime. I don't know where or how, but that will be when the eternal meets up. So I'll say, Gigawabmin, Gishawaynamin. I'll see you later. I love you. And he says this to me, but now I have to say it to him before he opens up the door to go to class. He said, Dad, everyone's going to hear you. And then they ask me, what are you trying to say? I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And we're talking about kindness, and I don't think I'll get to this word. I hope you won't mind if I mention this. You guys need to stand up for a moment, or because it's that dreaded after lunch. It's warm in here, and it's like I get it. I've been a dad for 9 years, and I'm still tired. I don't just want to get up and stretch for a moment, and it's warm in here too. So it's like oh, good. So. Wait, should we try one more time? Should we wait a minute? Be able to share that with you all. That's a privilege.
Yeah.
There was another word that is like loving kindness. It's Vukelich. Earlier today, anyone in two linguistic about it, we spoke about living it's to lead a life of kindness. It's to be a kind person. It's to have loving kindness. It's to be generous. And this word part, I'm fascinated by. You guys don't have to stand if you want. I just wanted to know if you wanted to move around. Attention goes, and the other goes. I know what that's like when you have all you needed it. We've only a few moments left, but I would love to share this word with you because I love this word. What is so cool about the Yajay part, and if they watch this, he or she means like, we have this word, and it's not like a leader's name, it's just the name, instead of giving it, Yajay Manadu, the kind spirit. Now that Manadu can mean spirit, it can also mean mystery. So when they're talking about the spirit, when they're talking about God, the creator, lack of a better term, it is both the kind spirit, it can also be the benevolent mystery. So when I first started learning the language, I don't know if you guys have ever heard Ojibwe, Anishinaabe or Chippewa language, often it's Gitchi Manadu. And that's how I had learned it, just from mainstream culture. And I was nudged and taken aside by elders. They were like, that's not quite correct. Our old word for God was Yajay Manadu. It wasn't great spirit. It was the kind spirit. It was the benevolent spirit. For me, that was beautiful because the Gitchi, I think, comes from maybe the Old Testament God, as this was getting translated. It probably was, the oldest word was Gitchi Yajay Manadu, the kindest, most benevolent mystery. It was like an affirmation that rather than being in a hostile universe, the universe was kind. That we had this kindness from the earth, we had this kindness from the animals, we had this kindness from plants, and the mystery as well. And that although we'll face struggle, there must be moments of kindness as well. And maybe fundamentally, it's that. I find it to be very optimistic. And so when I would hear Gitchi Yajay Manadu, it probably, rather than getting shortened to Yajay Manadu, it got shortened to Gitchi Manadu. So you would have people using that. And one generation knew that it was the shortened version of the kindest, most benevolent mystery to Great Spirit. But really it had been the kind spirit in the beginning. And I noticed that there was a time when you could use that word to live. The Yajay, it wasn't just reserved for spirits. It wasn't just reserved for God. A human being could do this as well. And we knew it because we could see it in the word. It was a word that had been passed down to us. Yajay Wahans. He or she leads a life of kindness. And then I heard this story, and I think this is so important to share with men, in the men's group. Yajay Nave. Now this word, I actually named my first language company after me. It's the first time I heard it, it blew me away. It's a teaching I would love to share with you all before our session ends. Because again, it radically transformed the way I led my life. So there's that Gege and Abe. That's the being. Like Anishinaabe, it's a human being, it's a being. So if you look it up in the dictionary, it will say a middle-aged man. That is only telling part of the story. Gege Nabe, when he was 18, 19, 20, he would be in a Shkinaway. So he's a young man. He is literally a new man. And he would make this vow. This is the lifestyle I'm going to try to be a Kijinabe. So for the next 20 winters of his life, during the prime of his existence, and maybe you guys remember it, I'm almost 50 now, I remember it, 20 to 40, where he is at the height of his power to hunt, to trap, to fish, to harvest wild rice, to get maple syrup. For the next 20 winters, whatever he has in surplus, he's going to do. And there was always someone in need. I think we're all at an age where we recognize there will always be someone in need. There will always be a widow, there will always be an elder, there will always be an orphan who will need help. For the rest, for these 20 years, whatever he has in surplus, he gives. And he'll do this while he's raising a family, while he's at his very best. We see here both an indigenous perspective of spirituality and economy. Because when the missionaries start coming here, they note that, the people who are held in highest regard, they often look like paupers. They often look impoverished. They don't have the fanciest clothes at all because whatever fancy clothes they had, they gave to someone who needed it. They didn't have their wealth hoarded and stockpiled. For them, the economic view was my wealth isn't determined by what I have or hoarded. My wealth is determined what have I given to my community? What have I given to my relatives? What have I given to those in need? That's what made me rich. And after 20 years of doing that, they would then be considered for leadership in their community. And maybe if you are like me, you too have had hard times, maybe financially straitened times, maybe times of difficult relationship, and those times make us very strong. And after doing that, winter after winter after winter, almost like you're exercising that humility. Here is someone that you want to be a leader in the community. This is someone who can't be bought or sold. The things you're offering to me, I've given them away. I've been doing it at the prime of my life. You have nothing you can give me. But have I practiced giving to those in need when they needed it? Those who maybe couldn't help themselves, or maybe those who could have helped themselves but found themselves making mistakes with their lifestyle, with their choices. I will look after them. And at that point, Kije Nabe would be considered for a leadership position. And I think that that's very important. And I think that despite living in a modern, in our contemporary society, to have that memory that, my wealth isn't determined by what I've hoarded, what I've stockpiled. My wealth as a man has been, what have I done to help those in need in my life? And I found that radically transformed my goals and ambitions as a young man. And by and by, that happened. As a language teacher, I found myself financially strained. I was chronically underemployed. I was taught humility that way when my best and brightest. And yet I look back at those times now with fondness that, what was I really seeking out? That I have a chance to share some of those teachings that I had learned at that time. I have to say it's been a privilege and it's been an honor to have a chance to say and share some of these words with you all today. Words that have, again, radically transformed my life. If it is in prayer, if it is in humility, if it's in respect, if it's in kindness. And for men and for Kije Nabe and for Vukelich, for warriors. That is something that it's a privilege to have had a chance to share with you all this afternoon. So I want to say Vukelich, Awaken. Thank you so much for listening. Really great. No, the schedule I saw said until 2. So I've left a few moments for comments or questions or.
So the story about our relatives looking with kindness amongst us and saying, it caused me to think of the story of the prophecy of the food that grows on the water and how that fit into that. If you can do that in a few minutes.
I can, no, it's the prophecy of the food that grows on water is one that I think is, it's an epic, it's very beautiful, and it's very important to Anishinaabe today. So, I can do the take I know that I learned from Eddie, the late Eddie Benet. He writes in the Mishomis book, the grandfather book, that there's a period in history where you have Anishinaabe who begin leaving the East Coast. They have seen the, like, Hichijiwatagami Gami. Hichigami is like the Great Lake Superior, but the Jiwatagami Gami is the Solwak. It's the Great Solwak. They're in Wabanong, they're in the land of Dawn, and there's a prophecy that they need to begin moving. And this is a point, and this one I'm going to share this. This is my serious opinion of it. This is before Columbus. They say it's pre-contact, but I don't believe it is pre-contact. I believe they had contact with Vikings. And they knew where some were, others must be coming. And that initial one did not work well with the Vikings. And I don't know if people had already begun getting sick. But they were afraid of pestilence, which would happen. I mean, you guys just saw one pandemic. So if you can imagine pandemic after pandemic, measles, mumps, smallpox, which was the worst, whooping cough, cholera, one after the other. We just saw one with, comparatively speaking, was not as bad. I got COVID. I got pretty sick from that, but it hurt. And they know that they need to begin moving, and they're told that they should begin looking for the food that grows on water. Now they'll make a number of stops along the way. They'll stop at Niagara Falls. I spoke of Vukelich on the place in the falls earlier. That's Minneapolis, but Minneapolis used to look like Niagara Falls 10,000 years ago. Even bigger. Now it's it's humble in comparison. They stopped. They'll end up in Sault Ste. Marie. That will be another place where all of those Great Lakes will meet up. And as they're moving, they begin finding the food that grows on water. And the food that grows on water, it's wild rice. And they'll see it and they'll recognize that, this is the place where you're supposed to be. In some stories, the trickster who's always walking around and he's always walking to the west, it said that he will take handfuls of wild rice whenever he's always walking along a body of water. And there's a verb for it. He was walking along the edge, the beach on a body of water, and it said while he's doing that, he will often leave handfuls of wild rice seed. So he's kind of making a little trail as he's going out west. But when they find the wild rice, one of the names for it is min, which is a berry or a seed, and manomen, which may come from mineral. Good, we spoke about good earlier. And that wild rice will bring balance to whatever ecosystem it's in. When you see it growing in the beginning, you will see the birds swimming by it. And the Anishinaabe would let the birds be as it's kind of floating there because, as one elder put it, he said, loon shit is wild rice heaven. It's gonna fertilize it. It's like, this is great. And so then they watch the moose walk in. And as the moose walks in, he has those long, thin legs, and as he's stomping it up, he's fertilizing the ground. And then as it begins to grow, they let it be. And when it comes time to knock the wild rice, the good seed, it can also come from Mandaduna, maybe the spirit's berry, reader's berry, delicacy. When they go out in their canoes and knock it into their canoe, not all of the rice goes into the canoe. Some of it goes back into the bed and they're reseeding the bed next year. And you can go year after year after year and get wild rice. And if you parch it in the traditional way over wood fire, you dehydrate it, comes out very black and gray looking, it will last indefinitely. It never lasts as long as 50 years, but you can have rice that was traditionally harvested and processed food, and that's 50 years old and still eat it. As long as you can keep it dry, it will keep you alive. For Anishinaabe, the good seed, it's one of the reasons we're alive. Those long cold winters I was telling you about, wild rice got us through those. It's almost a perfect food. There are proteins and carbohydrates in it. It lasts indefinitely. And again, we exist because the wild rice has taken care of us, as well as wild rice exists because we continue to harvest it, we continue to process it. It continues to bring balance to all of our needs. And so when you hear of Anishinaabe looking out for like the environment, looking out for the water, looking out for, in Minnesota now it's going to be nickel mining, and they're not against necessarily that kind of economy, but it's like, oh, do you have to nickel mine where we go and harvest our wild rice? And where we've been doing it for a very, very long time. And so you have people who are, advocating for the wild rice, for the birds, for the four-leggeds who are walking through there and saying, oh, they have a right. We're going easy on them too. We're treating them with respect. They have the same right to this wild rice that we do. And we absolutely need it to survive. And so we're treating it with great respect, acknowledging the sanctity of rice as well as of our relatives. And when they find the wild rice, we're still using it. I just had wild rice last week for dinner with my wife, which was very good. And so that kind of bringing balance to everyone, it's so important. Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, am I right that you mentioned humility, respect, and love?
Mhm.
Can you just give us the other couple
Absolutely.
just without explaining? Yeah.
Dave Waywin, which would be truth.
True. Okay.
Waikwadiziwin, which is honesty.
Separate truth and honesty.
Totally. Now go into it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
There's that ajizi. It's literally to live, one, and the other one is to speak. So ajizi and actually I'll show you guys tomorrow. So there's that one. There's strength of heart, or excuse me, courage.
Courage. Strength of
Or
heart.
bravery.
Yeah.
And wisdom.
Thank you so much.
Intelligence, or I even like to think of it as enlightenment. It's like literally seeing things as they are. Not seeing them with my prejudices or the issues and baggage I'm carrying with it, just seeing it as it is. So, those are our grandfather teachings.
Yeah, thank you.
And again, I'm looking forward to talking about those tomorrow. I'm really excited about that. And if we do that, I was speaking about Minopamatsuin earlier.
Mhm.
We can live according to those grandfather teachings. I think this is so cool. I had also studied philosophy for some time. There is nothing wrong I can find with it. Also, their approach was, if I lead my life according to those teachings, every single action and choice I make will be right. It will be positively beneficial. And I will know I will never see this someone 7 generations from now. It's quite impossible. But I know if I act with those now, it will be positively beneficial for them. That can be the altruistic version. It can be good for all of my relatives. You can be vice versa. You can be self-centered and egocentric, and I'm looking for me. Oh wait, this is the very best thing for me too. As well as being the best thing for my relatives. So in seeking out minimal amounts, they said this will work. It's worked for thousands of years. It will work for you now. So to have a chance to speak to you all about that. It's invaluable to me. It's a privilege. It's a pleasure.